Well, welcome. I'm Perry Williams, and this is Hamilton County Newsmakers. As you can see, today I have two guests. To my left is the Associate Superintendent, Dr. Dave Mundy.
Good to
Welcome,
see you, sir.
Dr. Mundy.
Thanks.
And on my right is the Superintendent of Hamilton Heights, Dr. Derek Arrowood. Welcome, guys.
Thanks.
Well,
Thanks for having us.
I appreciate you both coming. One thing I want to say, because a lot of the information I am going to talk about today are I get through two very talented people that you have at your school system. One with Hamilton Heights and Peggy Georgie, and Marnie Cook for Noblesville, on the information they send me to keep abreast of what's going on in the school. Now, as you both know, as far as the athletic side, your coaches do a pretty good job keeping me abreast. So, but the school, there's some great things coming out of there. First of all, I guess, Dr. Mundy, I'm going to go with Dr. Arrowood first, because he had a big announcement that he got up at 7. Well, he probably got up before 7 a.m., but he had a meeting at 7 a.m. on hiring a new football coach to replace, as football coach, Mitch Street. So,
Sure.
Dr. Arrowood, tell us a little bit.
I want to start with Mitch Street. Mitch Street has been our coach for 7 years, 6 winning seasons, 2 conference championships, went to the state finals several years ago, replaced a pretty darn good coach as well, a guy named Jason Simmons, who's now the head coach at Noblesville. Mitch will remain as our dean of students, and Mitch is just a good people, good person, wonderful father, great husband, does a great job at our high school. Mitch will be replaced by a guy named John Kirshner. John has been in our system for the last 4 years. He's been an assistant coach. He's a phenomenal social studies teacher. Has done a great job with that. In the last year, he's taken over our weightlifting program and our strength and conditioning program as well. And so John will replace Mitch as our head coach. This is John's first head coaching job. He has been an assistant for us, as I said, for the last 4 years. Prior to that, he was an assistant at North Central. John is tremendous coach, wonderful father, lives in northern Hamilton County, very committed to the program. We had 25 applicants for the position, 24 outside, and John was the one internal candidate. Jared Mason, our high school principal, and Kurt Ogden, our athletic director, interviewed 10 folks, brought them in, and narrowed that down to 4. And then we brought in a school board member, a parent, an assistant coach who's also a middle school assistant principal. Corey Kiger was part of that team, and Kristen McCarty, our business manager, sat in. And then we interviewed the final 4 candidates, all of which were outstanding. John rose to the top of that pool, and he is incredibly excited. And we did name him as our head coach this morning at our 7 a.m. school board meeting. And John's ready to go. He's already I'm sure here in the next 15 or 20 minutes he'll be leading weightlifting at our high school and doing that. John's done a great job, not just with our football players in weightlifting, but really impacted our entire athletic program with his mindset, and had a lot to do with our girls basketball program this year. Those girls lifted 3 times a week, and we played pretty much 6 girls the entire season. And those girls were in shape and ready to roll. So John will do a great job. He opens up the first game of the season is against the somewhat evil Mount Vernon Marauders.
That'll be nice.
The Mount Vernon Marauders are coached by former 2-time state champion, a guy named Mike Kirshner, who was the former coach at Ben Davis and has taken over at Mount Vernon. So John has coached against his dad 4 times. He's 0-4 when he was at North Central and he was at Ben Davis, but he said that this one really counts. So he's excited about that. Mike has actually been in our building. John does some really neat stuff with Veterans Day programs and led to a couple things, and Mike came to visit John and watched him do that. So we're really excited about John, his enthusiasm. And I've said this to every coach I've ever worked with. I said it to Bud Wright. I said it to Mitch. I've said it to Chad Ballinger or any of our coaches. I don't frankly care if they win a game or not. What I care about is that the kids he takes and impacts today carry that impaction with them for the next 20 years. And then you talk about, a guy like Bud Wright, who's won all those state championships. What people talk about is the experience they had 20 years ago playing for him, and how he led them to be great people. And that's the kind of guy John Kirshner is. So we're excited about that. He intends to win football games, I'm sure, but what I'm excited about is the kind of character he is, and the kind of character he will instill in our community, and continue on what's been a really strong tradition for the last 10 or 15 years in Hampton Heights in football.
Well, that sounds great. That's great. It's we'll welcome John here on our Monday night coaches show, because I will have to say that Mitch Street was a very loyal participant in the Monday night coaches show here in the studio, because I know how busy those guys are during football, and it's great to have those guys in here. And of course, one thing, Jim pays them well, so they always show up, and they have to have their pay before they'll do their show, and the pay is Greek's Pizza.
Yeah,
so, but you think about it, they're coming straight from football practice, so
we didn't even get a water.
Yeah, that's right. He offered it up, but we'll welcome him with open arms, and I'm sure I'll be up there talking to him a little bit about the upcoming Huskies for next season. Well, Dr. Mundy, let's talk a little bit. This is not old news, but this is important news, and if anybody in Noblesville or the area thinks that we didn't need a new transportation center,
Yes.
should have toured that before we moved to the new one.
Yes.
So you had a dedication February 23rd. So talk a little bit about that, and talk about some of the things that allows us to do that we couldn't possibly do with the other one, including getting the entire bus in the garage to work on.
To be able to work on the buses. Yeah, we opened up finally our new transportation center. Not to say we didn't have a few delays as we were going. Really, when it comes down to it, Mrs. Phelps, Mr. Wallace, and then our head transportation person, Mr. Zachary, did a fantastic job of orchestrating that whole project. And you're right, Perry. What a change. We were running over 100 bus fleet in an area that was built for about 40 buses numerous years ago. Other parts, like you hit the nail on the head a second ago. Most people didn't realize that when we tried to fix buses, while we could pull 2 buses in at a time, there wasn't even enough room for our mechanics to move around those buses. And it really hinders our efficiency on being able to keep the fleet running. What they've built and what those 3 people have put together is state-of-the-art out there. It is an impressive facility. The ability to pull the buses in, the ability to wash the buses, which some people take that as trivial, but the reality of it is the regular washing of the buses helps us keep it operational, especially during Indiana winters when they go through. We now have a place, a lot nicer place. Our bus drivers are fantastic. Been out there several times over the last couple of months, and they're a great group to work with. And they basically now have a large room that they can spend more time. You're not that feel of, hey, kind of hurry up, get in, get out. A place where they can go. We have true offices now where they can do some of the work. The whole building project behind it, especially with the work those 3 people did, have put together something special. I was also impressed too. The night or the morning of the dedication, the acoustics are pretty good because the choir sang there. That was pretty impressive. And the other thing too is, it's a big deal when we had community members from Southeastern and Carmel and Sheridan all come and join us for the dedication. And we thought we'd have a few people show up. We didn't expect the numbers that showed up for the dedication, and it was happy for us to show it off. I know that even since then we've had some other people stop by, and our transportation folks have done what they can to kind of show the facility to those that have been interested. It changes our whole apparatus for bus delivery of our students, during the day. So pretty effective. Well,
that's great, and it's one of those things that we take for granted, and let's face it, the employees, and you guys both know that, especially Dr. Arrowood is a very skilled bus driver himself.
I was
so-
going to mention that there might be a position for a certain superintendent if he ever wants to come down and try one of the new buses down
driving
there.
the BPA on Sunday down at the BPA State Conference, Business Professionals Association group, so I'm booked on Sunday. So after that, we can talk.
That's okay. We'll talk about it then, see what we can do. Perry, you don't mind too, because I think Derek and I both talked. You started off by mentioning the importance of our press people. I want to make sure we throw some credit their way, because all of this stuff, I followed up after Dr. Arrowood in Sheridan, and now working with Dr. Niedermeyer. I learned a lot from both of those two on how important open and honest communication is. And having Mrs. Cook for us and the lady you recently hired is such an integral part of what we do. So I appreciate you saying that, because the part that they do in getting this news out and making sure our community is connected and knows what's going on is huge. So thank you for mentioning that.
No,
when you do that.
No problem. And they do a great job. And we know with today with social media, I mean, there's good things in social media and there are bad things, and the importance of getting information out to the students, parents, and the community is huge. Okay, and getting it out in the proper way.
Yes. We've really taken a lot of focus, and we're able to do that with the assistance that we get through these two people. Of where it turns bad is when people don't think we're giving out the whole story, or where we're not giving honest information. And the day goes, and the day goes quick, and the day goes very fast. And with the assistance of these people, we're allowed to get out a whole lot of information to keep our community informed. And I know you were able to do that recently to really help you guys out as well.
Yeah, we hired a lady named Peggy Georgie, and Peggy has phenomenal experience before she came to us, and so that experience is really what allows us to use her skill set to make sure that we're communicating in an appropriate and positive and professional way. And I'm an old fifth grade teacher, and as much as I want to be the face of the school corporation when good things are happening, I also recognize that I need to be the face of the school corporation when not so good things are happening. And so it helps us, people like Peggy and Marnie help us to really focus on the task of communicating appropriately and positively, and making sure we share the whole message. We've had some issues in the last couple of weeks in the United States where it's impacted each of us locally on how we're going to deal with certain student situations and or safety issues and things like that. And having Peggy in my ear saying you need to be more transparent in how you did and how you handled this, or you need to phrase it this way because parents are going to have questions if you phrase it that way. And having that opportunity to really craft those releases and work on those things to make sure that we're being transparent. We want to be open, honest, and transparent with everything we send out, and Peggy's allowed to do that. Peggy worked for us for several years. Work is a perspective term because she worked for free, and so we really like
the best kind, right?
But having her now as a part-time paid staff member allows us to really professionalize that even more. And recently, and Dave and I have both participated. And Hamilton County Realtors has a kind of a conference every year where they have each school corporation in the county share about their school corporation. Dave a couple years ago brought kids from Sheridan when he was Sheridan superintendent. It was awesome, and I think Sheridan's continued to do that. But Marnie goes and speaks at that, and Peggy goes and speaks at that now for us, and it really allows us to have a polished professional message. And especially when she's speaking to a group of realtors or professionals who are trying to sell houses in our district, it gives them a point person to contact and say, hey, I have some questions about how you're doing your AP classes, or tell us about your swim program, or ask us about our greenhouse, because those things are unique to our school corporation, and we're really proud of them. But Peggy can be that point person to share that, and Marnie Cook does a great job at that as well as Noblesville, and it's kind of a role model for us on how to handle that, because she does a great job. Some people are really good with the bad news. Some people are really good with the good news. Marnie's great with all the news, and that's been a role model for us to make sure that we're not just celebrating all the things that we're awesome at, and there's a lot of those things, but we're also making sure that we share the messages we need to share with our families and parents in our community about what's going on in our schools.
I think the one thing, and this does not exist all over the country and the state of Indiana, is the close-knit group that the administrative staff has at each school system. Okay, it's not like that at Hamilton Heights you make a decision without discussing matters that may pertain to the whole county, of calling one of the superintendents or calling an associate superintendent and talk about issues that you have to make sure that everyone's on the same page in this county, and that's huge, okay? Because that to me is one of the problems. When I came back here, I felt like that we had a lot of great organizations, a lot of great schools and things like that, but I always use this old buzzword, we had a ton of silos, okay? So everybody lived in their own little silos, and you're all doing the same things, you're all doing great things, but no one shares some of those great things with it. And it's totally different, especially when you were at Sheridan, you were at Heights. Dr. Niedermeyer came here. Dr. Great does a great job over at Westfield and is in that group. And, you know, Southeastern, Sheridan. I mean, you're all working together.
I don't appreciate you saying that, because that shouldn't be taken for granted. Every time we sit around and make a decision, a big decision for the whole school corporation, we do sit and discuss, all right, how is this going to affect Southeastern? How will this affect Carmel? And if we think at all a decision or information that Mrs. Cook might have to put out is going to affect anybody, I mean, there's numerous times I'll call Dr. Arrowood and be like, hey, we're getting ready to do this, or hey, we might do it this way, what are you guys thinking? But what it also allows us to do is cover more angles. When we call up to Dr. Arrowood, he might have thought of something that we hadn't yet. And it makes us go back to that message, it makes us get the message out consistently and fairly across the entire county, because it is a county that, I know we all like our sports rivals, but the reality of it is we're all thriving in this county together. We're all fortunate to work in this county. We're all fortunate to live in this county. And when one's successful, we're all successful here. You know, do we want to win the athletic contest? Sure we do. We really want to. But do we all want to end the school year with all of us having the highest grades we can possibly get, and also having the most successful SAT scores or the most successful publicity across the state? Yes, and we all win in those battles.
Okay, and the other thing, I'm glad you mentioned that about the students and the academics. I think sometimes, as you know, our coaches, our athletes on the field, people sometimes forget that our coaches are not just coaches, okay? Oh, no. They are mentors, they are teachers in the classroom, and that's truly their first job, okay? And many times, and Dr. Arrowood always says that, and you heard him mention it with the new football coach, with Mr. Kirshner was mentioning that he is great in the classroom, okay? Because both of you's job is to make sure that we have the best possible teachers to educate our students, and them coaching are actually secondary jobs to what they do.
And I know Derek has a strong belief in that too. I would leave it as this example that goes into, I was very fortunate this year to have my first experience with the high school level at Noblesville, and my daughter that played 2 different sports. And what I took out of both of those sports, did they have successful seasons? Yes. To go back what Dr. Arrowood said, I've always had the same philosophy of anybody that I've been in charge of. If it's successful, not by wins or losses all the time, it's successful. And I saw 2 different programs firsthand this year where I watched the team, and especially my own daughter, grow as an individual.
Yes.
And that, when I thanked coaches at the end of the year, it wasn't because of playing time, it wasn't because of wins we might have had, it was because I can truly, honestly say I watched a whole group of young ladies grow as individuals throughout the course of the year, because it's not just on court for basketball or for soccer. It's all the other work they do, the fundraisers they do for the Cancer Society. Then when they get together and do the Christmas exchange for students that need, you know, certain gifts at Christmas time. That's what makes a program. And Noblesville and even all the county schools around us, the wrestling coach, Mr. Simmons, the football coach, our coaches are full of quality individuals who are great teachers. And if you're a great teacher, you can become a great coach when it gets down to
Absolutely.
it. And I know that I've always followed his philosophy.
And you think about how these guys not just impact the kids they work with, which is their primary focus, and we also think about in terms of compensation. When we pay somebody, we're paying them the vast majority of their salaries for their teaching.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And we got nervous a couple of years ago. There was some legislation going through that we had to take into the number of hours people worked on a extracurricular activity and give them an hourly wage. Well, Chad Ballinger would make like 3 cents an hour.
Yeah.
Our girls soccer coach Travis Kaufman would make 2 cents an hour. I mean, those guys are unbelievable at what they do, and they not just impact they don't only just impact kids, they impact the entire school, but they also really, and this has been more of a trend in the last 10 or 15 years, they really worry about impacting the community. Yeah. Our girls soccer team does all kinds of phenomenal things in the community. They've done some things with Clean Up Noblesville. They've done some things with food pantries and different things like that. One of the things that they really intrigued us about John, and Mitch has done this as well at the football program, was what he wanted to do out in the community. You know, a couple years ago, we were supposed to play Kokomo in a football game, and we had the tornado, and Mitch and the Kokomo coach were friends, and we drove the bus to Kokomo to help clean up some of the damage that had been done in Kokomo. 15 years from now, those kids are going to be talking a lot more. Now, we played Kokomo last year and got beat. 15 years from now, they're going to be talking more about the year that we went up and helped them with tornado than they are about the year that we got, because they were pretty good. They made it to state finals. But, you know, those are that kind of experience that truly impact. And Noblesville just had a girl named to the Indiana All-Star team. She's a phenomenal. She was awesome when she played against Hamilton High. She's really good. That's a good kid and a great family. But not everybody on that Noblesville team, and certainly not on our team, has that level of athletic talent. But 20 years from now, every one of those kids is going to have an impact on our community and our you know, nation, state, country, whatever. And it's the skills that they learn, not just from 8 to 4, but from 4 to 8, that sometimes set them apart. And you know, when we talk about our athletic programs and these extracurricular activities, the number one thing that we worry about at our high school is making sure that every kid has a niche. Every kid needs to be engaged. When we read about national crises of people doing crazy, awful, horrific things, so often those people aren't connected. And what we really work on at Hamilton Heights, and I know Noblesville does the same, is to make sure that every kid in our high school has a reason to come to school other than just classes. That's the primary focus, but you got to be engaged. You got to, whether it's BPA, whether it's band, whether it's choir, whether it's soccer, whether it's FFA, whatever it is, that extra attachment that you have, not just with other students, but with an adult that cares about you and worries about you and asks about you, that's powerful, and that makes a difference, not just today, but down the road.
You know, to go off what he said too, one of the important things we're seeing in Noblesville has had that huge success this year too, as many of the other county schools have. You know, state championship band, state championship cheerleading. You know, those programs and staying connected are thriving in Noblesville High School and Noblesville Middle School. And to the point when we start thinking future growth or what we might do, it's not straight to athletics. Actually, it has a lot to do with how do we take in the whole child to make sure that we can get them connected to something, whether it's a card club, we know, whatever it might be in the afternoons. It's also to go to that, not just coaches giving extra time. You'd be amazed if if parents came in to see the number of teachers that give up their own time without pay to run a club for a kiddo after school, because you get a group of kids that say, you know, look, we really like playing this game, or we really want to learn the number of elementary clubs. That just to give a kid a place to go after school is unbelievable, the amount of hours the teachers spend to make sure kid brings it up. Yeah, I'll run that for you. And the next thing you know, 5 years later, they're still doing that same extracurricular activity. And I know we always jump to athletic because that's the visible, you know, when you see it. But the reality is the other non-athletic sports and non-athletic ECAs and performing arts are thriving across this county. I mean, it's amazing.
You know, there's Dr. Arrowood, I don't know what the statistic is that you have at Hamilton Heights, but when I went through Miller Ambassadors last year, and I was very, very blessed to be able to, that they picked an old man like me to think that they were going to teach me something, okay? Because I spent several years at Noblesville High School, and I think I ran into my English teacher that I had in school not too long ago, and she's still alive, first of all. But anyways, my wife has known her entire life like I have, you know, but I hadn't seen her for a long time, and Kathy says, come over here with me because she'll remember you. And at least she told me she did remember me, and I wasn't a very good student. So well, you know, they either say you remember the real good ones or you remember the real bad ones. Well, I'm not sure which side I was on, okay? But you know what I mean.
Yes.
But that's important, and I know that you guys take pride in the students that you've ran in throughout your career that come back, and that's what it's all about. That makes it worth why you both went into education.
Sure. And a couple quick stories, and I think you were there, that we had our senior night for basketball for the boys basketball program, and so we announced all the seniors that were actively participating during boys basketball season. Over half of our senior class was on the gym floor at that when we announced that. Between the 9 seniors on the basketball team, the 40+ seniors we had in band, between the kids in the Amber Guard, our athletic training program, the cheerleaders, that did not count the kids that were wrestling or girls basketball and other sports. I mean, that's powerful when over half your class is engaged in just that one thing, and knowing that other kids are engaged in things as well. And you know, I've had the unique opportunity to come back home in a sense, because I went to Hamilton Heights and graduated from Hamilton Heights, and you talked about teachers that you had that are still around. Well, some of the teachers that I had are still teaching at Hamilton Heights, and one of them is Miss Mary Schwartz. Mary Schwartz was hired in 1971 at Hamilton Heights, and so I met with Miss Schwartz to reintroduce myself and get to know her again, and she said, "I remember you as a student," which made me a little nervous because I didn't know that I wanted to be remembered as a student. She said, "The best thing about you as a student was your brother." I love that story. I had heard that story before. That's a good lesson for our students too, because those teachers will remember you 20, 30, 40 years from now. So, or your brother. So there you go.
Another thing to talk about a little bit on the Noblesville side, and in fact, Jim and I have actually come out to the school and videoed it. It's very tough to video, but the Miller Shift showcase that's coming up here on March the 15th. I'll tell you, I always tell all my friends who sit around and sometimes think it was better in the old days, which maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but you know, I always say, you know, it may say Noblesville on the outside, it may say Hamilton Heights on the Hamilton Heights School on the outside, but truly, if you get the opportunity to see what kids are doing in schools today and the type of facilities they have, it's a totally different atmosphere, okay? Because I really believe now that we'll see but the way that you are teaching today, you're empowering our young people to make some of their own decisions, okay? And when you do that, sometimes they may make a few mistakes along the way, but later on in life, they're going to learn if they have that base structure to go by.
Problem solving, you know, that's one of the things you start looking at when you're even at the younger ages. You know, you used to think when you did kindergarten, first grade, it was come in, learn your ABCs, your 1, 2, 3s. But you've seen the Learning Showcase as a perfect example. You know, we start bringing in all the different things the students and the teachers do from kindergarten all the way up to the senior year, and you're amazed by it anymore. You know, from biochem class that wasn't even a class, I think, when we were doing this, the biochem class in the high school level, all the way up to right now the Project Lead the Way stuff, for example, that they do in 2nd grade, learning how to problem solve. But they're not only, it's problem solving, they're learning how to communicate, and they're learning how to work with others. You know, and in the future job market, those are the 3 skills that we really try to focus on that you can do about any job. I know that you've heard us, we've talked in this meeting, I think, before about many of the jobs coming up they haven't even created yet. Right. And I used to think that was silly, you know, that was, how can you not know the jobs that are coming? Well, I had a meeting this morning, somebody was making a presentation that they're starting to look for employees for, that frankly the job market doesn't exist yet, and that's their concern, is they've got a great idea and they want to start finding workers. But it was funny to hear him say, I just need people that are great communicators, and I need people that can solve problems when it comes down to it. The Learning Showcase, you're right, Perry, if you've never been to that, you can't see a more impressive evening. And every school has their own version of it. But it's gotten, the application process and a number of different activities kids do, from on the computers to even artwork, it's really starting to take over the whole high school anymore when we do it. It's such a big performance. The coding that kids do now on computers, you know, it used to be we thought computers were a high school issue. We watch our 2nd and 3rd graders now that can code different things, use the iPad, move things around. They're done with the problem before we even finish asking the question when they get finished. So, yeah, the Learning Showcase is coming up here in a couple nights, and we'd love for people to come attend on March 15th because it is something that really shows off what the future of education is.
Absolutely.
It also shows off how wonderful kids are. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Because, you know, you think about it, even you guys are younger than I am, but you were taught the same way. Be nice, Jim. You were taught the same way. We were put in a classroom. We were put in rows, okay, and we were handed a book, and we were told to learn this, this, and this. And you really didn't ask any questions. You learned this, this, and this. And at the end of the day, you kind of think, looking back, what did I really learn? Where am I going to use that?
I got to go to the computer lab. I was at least young enough to go to the computer lab once a month. Is what we did. There was one for the building.
But I think the important thing to remember too is how our teachers have evolved. When I taught fifth grade at Stony Creek in Noblesville, there were kids in my class that could learn that way. That I could give. I'm Brooke Malloy and Melissa Heidloff, who's now a teacher at Westfield. Melissa, I could give a textbook in the morning and give her 5 assignments and say, I'll see you at 3 o'clock, let me know what you get done, and Melissa would have that done and 3 other things done. But it didn't work with every kid. And so the beauty of education now in Noblesville and in Hamilton Heights and across the county and across the state, and really in public education in general, is that we're differentiating to meet the needs of every single kid and making sure that we found a way for every kid to learn what they need to learn. Another thing I want to bring up is about, we talk in a lot about legislation and concerns about pathways and things like that. We are blessed to be in a county and really in a state that has incredibly low unemployment. And the reason for that low unemployment is because public high schools in Indiana are creating kids that can go either one of 2 directions. They can go to college and get a degree and get a job, or they can go into the workforce, and we're continuing to streamline that and make that even better. But it's also a challenge when folks come in, whether it's an Amazon or whether it's whatever technology company Dave was talking to today, and say, hey, I need workers for this job. The people here have a job. That's the challenge. So we're doing a really good job. So we want to make sure that we can react to those needs, but we're also continuing to produce the core production of our facilities, which is kids and kids that are ready to go out in the world and do great things. And that's different for every single kid. And so sometimes we have to be careful. We don't necessarily want to react to the job market today because, as Dave said, that job market is changing. We want to create students and put into students the ability to be successful in whatever endeavor they choose to do. And a lot of that has to do with what happens from 8 to 4 in the classroom, but a lot of that has to do with that, what Dave was talking about earlier as well, from 4 to 8. We've got our middle school team. We got 3 middle school robotics teams. They're going to the state middle school robotics competition. Dave's son's involved in that as well, and Noblesville. Noblesville has a program like that too. That is so powerful for those kids to be able to take that skill set that they've learned in a class, but then apply it competitively. And we talked earlier about the competition and cooperation. We're in a place where that competition / cooperation makes us all better. I make no bones about it. We want to catch Noblesville on every test score that they have. We want to be as good or better than anybody in Hamilton County. We want to do that on the athletic field as well. That competition makes us better. But and Noblesville is a great example of this. Sheridan's a great example of this. And Westfield, especially in that north central part of the county, we will all work really closely together to make each of us better. And Southeastern and Carmel are doing that as well. But certainly in this part of the county, we're working together to make us all better teachers because it impacts our kids in a positive way. But I don't want to get you wrong. I still want to be better.
Absolutely.
And that's what makes us better.
Well, Perry, you mentioned too that we used to sit in rows. You're right. We used to do all that. He has a beautiful one. I forget exactly what you guys call it, but we have an innovation and learning, class and center that we do now. The whole concept of how teachers have adjusted to basically you go in as a student, you come up with an idea, you market it, you develop it, you create it, you do all of that. And that freedom to give those kids that ability to thrive in an area that interests them, that didn't exist 5-6 years ago. And now we're actually shifting a lot of our funds, to those type of projects to help our kids be able to compete in a job market with all those other people around us.
I got one more story I want to talk about. Hamilton Heights is, a year ago when they dedicated the new wing of the school and worked on making classrooms up in the 21st century. Mm-hmm. And I went on that tour, and I was blessed to go on that tour just 2 weeks ago when the Kiwanis had a meeting up there, and it took the Kiwanis group through Hamilton Heights and went through the business end of it. The performing arts is growing in leaps and bounds. So we were in the band room, the choir room, FFA is a huge part of Hamilton Heights and their schools, especially with Bex and Reynolds up there in that area, and Bex has truly proven that farming is a big
Sure.
part, and you have to be very educated to do some of the things and some of the engineers that they employ up there. But the point, after touring those classes and seeing all the things that they were doing in business, Derek took us out back and he says, "I want to show you something." And with the participating help from Bex, they're in a process, which probably in another month they'll have a grand opening up there of their brand new greenhouse, which Bex has played a big part in helping them design, and it's state of the art. I mean, it's a great facility, and of course the Beck family realize how important those type of things are in a school like Hamilton Heights, because they want kids to go away, get degrees in engineering and agriculture, and come back and work for Beck's, because they're looking for people all the time.
Well, of Noblesville schools, Hamilton Heights schools, and Beck's Hybrids, Beck Hybrids has more PhDs working there than the two of us combined. I mean, the level of science that happens out there and strategic thinking that happens out there is phenomenal. We are blessed that this is a little history lesson. This is actually the third greenhouse we put on the back of that high school since it was built in the early 1990s, and Sonny Beck was actually on the school board at that time. And this is by far the most sophisticated greenhouse. And there's a couple things that have made this, we're really excited about this. Number one, we have a phenomenal teacher. Emily Carson is leading our ag program and is our leader of FFA. We hired her away from Triton Central. Her husband actually works out at Beck's, but Emily is doing a phenomenal job. And we'll have an open house and after spring break where she'll be selling flowers and things like that, and doing that will be there. We've also started to have some turf wars about that greenhouse, because now our science department wants to get down there and do some activities in there, and we're starting to look at scheduling and how that'll work. It's highly automated as well, because we want to respect Emily's time so she doesn't have to come back at all hours of the night to turn this and turn that. But we have an unbelievable model for how a greenhouse should work, a productive greenhouse in two places. Number one, at Beck's Hybrids, one of the most sophisticated agri-science places in the country, if not the world, and we model a lot of what we did off our current greenhouse at Hamilton Heights that we're finishing up after Beck's. And secondly, Dr. Kevin Cavanaugh is on our school board, works out at Beck's and he's a doctor of corn, and that's his PhD, and he has been at Beck's for 20 plus years and has been, if not as much, almost as much of a part of the success of Beck's Hybrids as Sonny and Scott, and then Francis before that, and has done a phenomenal job of being a board member who is actively engaged in what we're doing and making sure that that greenhouse meets the specifications of what we expected it to be and what we want it to be and what it will be going in the future. So we're so fortunate to be in an area where we have companies like Beck's, and Dave's got some great partnerships with Harris Chevrolet and different things like that, where we can take advantage in the internship program as well at Noblesville, where we can take advantage of those things. And we really, as a community, those things working together make us all better. And Beck's in that greenhouse is a perfect example of that. So we're really excited to get that open. And Dave was talking earlier about Project Lead the Way and engineering, things like that. Dave knows our engineering teacher and Project Lead the Way teacher is a guy named Eric Fisher, who's been doing this for a long time and travels all over the country. He'll tell you that he put both of his kids through college during his summer. He's got one Heights graduate that's at Syracuse, another Heights graduate that's a kid of his that was a graduate of University of Kentucky, and Eric will tell you that he'll pay for that through his summer teaching of teachers to be Project Lead the Way teachers. And it's so fun to go in his class, and Eric won't talk. He'll have the kids come up and show you what they're doing and explain to you what they're doing. And it's complex, intricate stuff that they have to speak slowly so I understand what they're talking about. And they are so passionate about what they're doing and what they're going to get to do going forward. And on the tour you were on, we had kids lead. I didn't hardly say anything on that tour. We had two kids lead that tour, and Peyton Tyndall was one of those kids, and he was bragging about all the cool things that he could do. And he would talk about, I'm in Derek Dean's class over here doing some really cool stuff, and on that side, and I'm in Eric Fisher's on that class in another period doing all the cool stuff in here, and this is the clean lab where we can do this kind of stuff, and that's the dusty lab where we do other kinds of stuff, and to see that passion of our students that are engaged in those programs, that's awesome. That's why we got into this. That's pretty fun.
Well, guys, we kind of ran out of time, but the one great thing about Hamilton County TV, we have no rules, so it doesn't really matter. But it's been a great conversation, and as normal, we had a plan that we were going to talk about some things, and we ran out of time. So I want to thank the both of you, and this old guy enjoys every time I get to sit down and talk to you guys, because you are both great educators. You have people around you that surround you that do great jobs and great things, and I'll steal a line that Dr. Arrowood tells me every time something goes good at Hamilton Heights. He goes, "It's good to be me." So it's truly good to be me, to be able to sit down and talk to these two gentlemen and be around both of their schools. So I appreciate it.
Appreciate your time,
both
always.
of you guys.
Thank you.
So this is Perry Williams with Hamilton County Newsmakers, and I'll see you next time.